Karma moves quietly, but it never misses. They thought they broke you. They thought they walked away untouched, untouchable, immune to consequence. They smiled while you cried, twisted reality while you begged for truth, and cloaked their betrayal in charm and deceit. And yet, what they never understood is that justice does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it moves in complete silence. Sometimes God's justice comes like the wind. Unseen, unstoppable. There are moments in life when it seems like evil triumphs and the wicked flourish, while those with good hearts are left in ruins. But what if I told you that this perception is merely a delay, not a denial? What if I told you that while they laugh on the outside, something far more devastating is unraveling on the inside? The narcissist who once appeared invincible is now being slowly, silently undone by the very force they mocked, karma. So today, we're going to uncover 5 silent signs that the narcissist is being destroyed. Not in public view, but in private torment. And if you're someone who has ever walked away from the wreckage of narcissistic abuse, this message is for you. Not for vengeance, but for validation. Not to feed bitterness, but to fuel your healing. Let's begin. 1. Their pride is crumbling from the inside out. Pride was never just a character flaw for the narcissist. It was their entire survival strategy. While you were showing empathy, they were showcasing ego. While you were building trust, they were building an image. You see, narcissists don't build lives. They construct illusions. They live in glass castles, built by manipulation, sealed by lies, and polished with praise. And at the center of it all stands pride, the throne they sit on and refuse to step down from. But what they never anticipated, what they could never prepare for, is what happens when God decides it's time to expose what was built on sand. The crumbling doesn't begin with thunder or spectacle, no. Divine justice works differently. Karma doesn't kick down the door, it seeps through the cracks. It starts small, invisible, At first, they still look the same, still wear the same clothes, still walk with the same smugness. But underneath that facade, something sacred has shifted. Their internal world begins to tremble. The applause they once thrived on, it grows quieter. The admiration they once demanded, it now feels strained. People don't look at them with admiration anymore. They look at them with questions, suspicion, weariness, and the narcissist feels it, not in their head, but in their spirit, in the places they've ignored for years, that little gnawing feeling in the pit of their soul that says, you're being seen for who you truly are, not who they pretend to be, not who they portray to the world, but who they are when no one is watching. And here's what most people don't understand about pride. It always disguises deep fear. The louder the arrogance, the deeper the insecurity. The more they posture, the more they panic. Because pride, when it's not anchored in humility, becomes a fragile god. And fragile gods cannot withstand the fire of truth. Karma doesn't have to shout. It doesn't need to show you thunder from heaven. It just starts taking away what they worshipped. Their influence, their social standing, their seductive confidence. One by one, these idols begin to fade. And the narcissist, who once mocked your tears, starts to feel the disintegration of their identity, quietly, permanently. But that's not the part that hurts them the most. What wounds the narcissist isn't just the loss of admiration, it's the loss of control. You see, when their pride collapses, they can no longer control how others see them. They can no longer spin the story. They can no longer twist the narrative. People begin to ask the questions the narcissist has spent years avoiding. Why does everything revolve around them? Why do they never take responsibility? Why do they leave a trail of broken people everywhere they go? And suddenly their greatest fear comes true. The mask slips. You might not be in the room when it happens. You may not hear the conversations. But trust me, God allows the whispers to circulate. The truth begins to travel. And their name, the one they elevated so high, is now being spoken in a new tone. Disappointment, distrust. This isn't a public downfall. This is private unraveling. The kind that stings deeper because there's no one left to applaud them, no one left to believe in the illusion. They are now forced to sit with themselves, and that's a torment they never prepared for. Because here's the divine irony. The person who once thought they were better than you now feels beneath even their own standards. The one who used pride to crush others is now being crushed by the weight of their own inflated self. The one who couldn't say sorry is now swallowed by silence. But don't mistake their quietness for peace. It's not calm. They are suffocating. And they'll never admit it, because even as the pride crumbles, they try desperately to glue the pieces back together, but the glue doesn't hold. The cracks only deepen. And now, what once made them feel invincible has become their greatest source of pain. And here's the most powerful part. You didn't have to do anything to make this happen. You didn't seek revenge. You didn't tear them down. You didn't curse them. You healed, you prayed, you let go. And God handled the rest. Their pride is crumbling, not because you exposed them, but because the truth always exposes what's fake. And when something has been built on deceit, God will eventually send the rain that washes it away, quietly, consistently, completely. And as they sit in the ruins of their own ego, trying to remember who they were before the illusion, something begins to haunt them. It's not the shame of what they did, it's the realization that you're not there to admire them anymore. That's what destroys them most. And while they battle that silent collapse, we move to the next stage of karma's quiet justice. The loss of the very relationships they once weaponized to feel powerful. 2. Their relationships begin to implode, privately and repeatedly. Every narcissist survives by weaving a web of control. They don't form genuine bonds, they form alliances that serve their ego. Every smile they offer, every compliment they give, every act of kindness is rarely rooted in love. It's rooted in strategy. They get close not to connect, but to dominate. They don't listen to understand, they listen to gather ammunition. And in time, everyone in their orbit becomes a piece on their emotional chessboard, maneuvered, manipulated, discarded. But what they never tell you, what they'll never admit, is this. Even their web has a lifespan. At first, it seems like their relationships are thriving. They're surrounded, they're admired, they're even envied. New partners, devoted friends, colleagues who sing their praises. You look on after all the pain they caused you, and it seems like they've moved on without consequence. But don't be fooled by the noise, because karma works in silence, and it often begins with whispers, the kind that others start having behind their backs. Little inconsistencies in their stories, strange emotional detachment, tension in their presence that can't be explained. The mask doesn't crack all at once. It begins with subtle shifts. One friend stops responding. The partner starts pulling away. The confidant begins to doubt. Someone who once defended them now watches from a distance, unsure why they feel so drained after every conversation. It doesn't happen publicly. It doesn't explode. It unravels. And the narcissist doesn't know how to stop it, because they never built those relationships on truth to begin with. When karma touches those connections, it doesn't destroy what's real. It exposes what was always fake. They try harder, they double down, they manipulate more aggressively, they post more, perform more, charm more. But instead of healing the cracks, their desperation only deepens the distrust. People start to realize this person only reaches out when they need something. This isn't love. This is convenience. The narcissist enters a silent collapse, one relationship at a time, one supporter at a time. And now, for the first time in their life, they're met with a terrifying reality. No one believes them anymore. Even worse, they know it's happening. They sense the shift, they feel the distance, but they won't acknowledge their role in it. They'll blame others. People are jealous. They were too sensitive. They betrayed me. But deep down, in the parts of their soul they refuse to touch, they know they're reaping what they sowed. Because when your life is built on lies, the truth doesn't need to shout, it simply arrives. And unlike you, who grieved, who healed, who grew, the narcissist refuses to change. They don't use this collapse as a moment of reflection. They see it as an attack. So instead of becoming better, they become more bitter, more isolated, more paranoid. They replay every relationship they've lost, but not with sorrow, with fury. How dare people abandon them? How dare you move on? How dare the people they once fooled now begin to wake up? But the damage is done. And now when they reach for comfort, they find distance. When they seek attention, they find silence. When they cry out, they find only the echo of their own voice. That, dear friend, is karma at its most intimate. It doesn't punish from the outside. It turns the narcissist's inner circle into a mirror, showing them who they are, what they've done, and what they've lost. You may never witness the phone calls they make that go unanswered. You may never hear the arguments behind closed doors. You may never know how many people now look at them and feel something unfamiliar, disgust instead of desire. But it's happening. The unraveling has begun. And no matter how carefully they curated their image, the truth always finds a way through. You once felt broken by how quickly they replaced you, how easily they moved on. But now, God is showing you something better, that what is built on lies will never last, and what is stolen through manipulation will always be lost through exposure. Their relationships are falling apart not because people are cruel, but because people are awakening. And when the world no longer bows to their illusion, the narcissist finds themselves alone, not because no one loves them, but because no one can trust them. Let this be your reminder. You didn't lose them, they lost you. And they're losing everyone else too, not all at once, but piece by piece. If you feel this truth stirring in your spirit, and you've seen the unraveling in the narcissist's life, comment below with the words, "Their connections are crumbling," because they are. And it's only the beginning. 3. Their mind becomes a battlefield they can't escape. There is a silence that is louder than any scream, and it lives in the soul of a narcissist when they no longer have an audience. For so long they found power in being surrounded by admirers, by validation, by people who would believe their lies and play into their illusions. When you were with them, they fed off your confusion. They twisted words, they distorted truth. They projected their darkness into your mind so they didn't have to face their own. But now, the crowd is gone, the room is empty, the mirror no longer lies. And for the first time in a long time, they're alone with the one person they've always feared the most, themselves. You see, narcissists don't just avoid accountability, they fear it. They construct their entire existence to avoid ever having to face their own reflection. And yet, karma has a way of stripping away distractions until there's nowhere left to hide. No more backup supply, no more fake friends, no more half-truths to cling to, just silence. But this isn't the healing silence that leads to redemption. This is the suffocating silence of a mind that's never been trained to sit in truth. It starts with restlessness, sleepless nights, unexplained anxiety, a racing heart at 3 a.m. and no one left to blame for it. They check their phone obsessively, hoping for a distraction, a validation, a quick hit of relevance. But it doesn't come. The dopamine is gone. And what remains is the echo of their own choices. Their mind becomes a courtroom they can't dismiss, a movie reel they can't pause. Their past actions begin to replay. Every manipulation, every lie, every betrayal. But this time, they're not in control of the narrative. This time, karma holds the remote. They remember your face, not in love, but in conviction. They remember the things they said when you were most vulnerable, the look in your eyes when you broke down in front of them and they turned away, the last words you said when you finally walked out the door. And for a moment, just a moment, they feel it. They feel guilt, not the guilt that leads to repentance, but the kind of guilt that brings torment without transformation. It's not guilt born from love, it's guilt born from exposure. The fear of being seen, the realization that maybe they were the villain after all. But instead of confessing, instead of changing, what do? They spiral. They begin blaming others again in their head. They mentally rewrite history to paint themselves as the victim. They invent new justifications, new delusions, but deep down they know it's not working anymore. The lies aren't sticking, the excuses aren't convincing. Because when God begins to bring the truth into someone's mind, he doesn't shout, he simply removes peace. And without peace, a narcissist unravels. They try to cope. Some dive into addictions, alcohol, sex, spending, anything to drown the silence. Others isolate, terrified of being questioned, paranoid about being confronted. Some even grow more dangerous, because the collapse of ego can birth desperate attempts at control. But none of it heals the core, because nothing external can silence internal judgment. And friend, here's the truth. This is where they wanted you to live, in confusion, in self-doubt, in shame, in endless mental warfare. But now, you're free. You've walked out of the prison of their manipulation, and they're still inside. Except now the warden is gone, and the prisoner is left pacing the floor of a mind they cannot escape. Let that settle. You healed. They didn't. You found peace. They found torment. Because when pride falls and people leave, the only thing left is the conscience. And for the narcissist, that is the most terrifying companion of all. And though they'll never admit it to anyone, you'll see it in their eyes if you ever cross paths again. A flicker of fear, a flash of weariness, an emptiness that wasn't there before. Because now they live with the thing they tried to put on you, the truth about themselves. For the doors begin to close and they can't reopen them. There comes a moment in every manipulator's life when the patterns no longer work. They'd rehearsed the act so well, the charm, the tears, the "I've changed." It once opened every door. Jobs were secured, friendships were renewed, lovers returned. Even when they were caught in lies or cruelty, they found a way back. The world seemed endlessly forgivable to them, and why wouldn't it? They'd always gotten away with everything before. But karma is patient, and when it moves, it doesn't just punish. It reveals what's been hidden and removes what's been unearned. Now something is different. Something unspoken has shifted. The narcissist begins to sense it first in small ways. A promotion they expected is quietly given to someone else. An invitation they assumed would come never arrives. Doors that used to fly open with flattery now remain firmly shut. The people who once gave them chance after chance suddenly grow distant, cold, disinterested, and they're confused, deeply confused. Because for the narcissist, life has always been transactional. They gave just enough to receive. They performed just enough to maintain control. But now, the performance no longer captivates. The audience has grown wiser. The old charm is stale. The tactics are transparent. The words feel empty. They start to realize they no longer hold the influence they once did. People are no longer impressed. Their apologies sound recycled. Their emotions feel mechanical. Doors that once opened to manipulation now respond with indifference, and there is nothing more unbearable for a narcissist than being ignored. This is not just a social shift, it's a spiritual consequence. It's what happens when you misuse grace for too long. Eventually, the world begins to close in, not in rage, but in silence. It is God saying, "No more." The narcissist reaches for old contacts, and they don't reply. They attempt new ventures, and they fail. They try to reinvent themselves, but even their new mask looks like a mask. And in that terrifying stillness, something begins to dawn on them. They are out of chances. This isn't the world turning against them. This is the natural return of what they gave to others. Emptiness, betrayal, superficiality. The connections they severed don't grow back. The trust they violated can't be rebuilt. The bridges they burned don't magically reappear. They look around and see only the aftermath. Opportunities lost, relationships gone, respect eroded. But worst of all, their timing has expired. The world has moved on, and for the first time they are no longer the main character. They are no longer chased, no longer begged for, no longer needed. That realization hits harder than any punishment could, and they panic, not because they're repentant, but because they're irrelevant. They try to re-enter places they once dominated, communities, relationships, circles of influence, and they're met with closed doors, locked rooms, and unfamiliar silence. Because what once gave them life has now moved out of reach. And that's the deepest tragedy for the narcissist. To still be alive, but no longer invited. To still speak, but no longer be heard. To still crave control, but have nothing left to command. These are not consequences imposed from the outside. They are natural harvests of seeds they themselves have sown. And yet they continue to press, to perform, to convince. But every door they knock on reminds them of the one they forced shut in someone else's face. Every no they receive echoes the no they once laughed at when it came from someone in pain. This is divine irony at its purest form. The one who once closed every door on you is now surrounded by doors they can't open. No tantrum can change it. No manipulation can reverse it. No apology can erase it. Because there comes a time, God-ordained, Spirit-enforced, when every last door that once made them feel powerful begins to close, and they're left on the outside not just of opportunity, but of grace itself. And unlike before, there is no one left to blame, no one left to control, no one left to save them from themselves. The chapter has closed, and the door is sealed. 5. They see you rise and can do nothing about it. Perhaps the cruelest consequence karma delivers isn't what it takes from the narcissists, it's what it allows them to see but never touch again. You see, when they walked away from you, they didn't just walk away from a person, they walked away from a miracle in progress. They walked away from someone who loved purely, who forgave deeply, who believed in their brokenness, even when it came at the cost of their own peace. In their arrogance, They mistook that gentleness for weakness, that compassion for naivety, that loyalty for blindness. They believed, with chilling confidence, that you would never recover. And they needed to believe that, because if you healed, it would mean you were never the broken one to begin with. So they went on with their lives, wearing the same mask, spinning the same story. They may have smeared your name, mocked your pain, or flaunted new connections as if none of what they did had consequences. To them, you were just another phase, just another heart to break and move on from. But what they didn't count on, what their ego couldn't predict, was that God had already started the rebuilding long before they ever thought to destroy you. While they laughed at your tears, heaven collected them. While they tried to silence your truth, God was preparing a louder testimony. And when they thought your chapter was over, heaven began writing a new one they were never meant to be part of. You began to rise, not with vengeance, not with bitterness, but with quiet strength. Day by day, your soul began to heal. The light returned to your eyes. The heaviness began to lift. You no longer woke up in confusion or fear. You no longer replayed the betrayal like a curse in your mind. You started to breathe differently, to speak with clarity, to remember who you were before they tried to erase you. You weren't just recovering, you were being restored. And now, they see it. They won't say it. They can't say it. Because to admit your strength would mean admitting their failure. But oh, they see it. They hear it through mutual friends. They notice it in your silence. They feel it in your peace. Your very existence has become a living contradiction to every lie they told about you. To others, you're moving forward. To them, you're an echo of what they lost and can never replace. It gnaws at them, because the very control they once held over your emotions has vanished. They can't affect you. They can't reach you. They can't distort your truth anymore. And now they must face a truth they swore they'd never accept. You were never broken. You were breaking free. What burns them now isn't your success in the worldly sense. It's that you carry something they cannot counterfeit. Peace. True, God-given, storm-surviving, soul-rooted peace. Not performance, not pretend, not popularity, just peace. And here's what's so divine about this part of your story. Your rising isn't just a victory for you. It's a message, a sermon, a holy declaration that no matter how deep someone tries to bury a child of God, they will always rise. And that rise, your rise, is their reckoning, because now they must live knowing that everything they tried to destroy thrives without them. Not only are you alive, you are aligned, anointed, and advancing. The truth crushes them silently, not because you hurt them, but because you healed without needing them to fix it, because you found purpose in what they meant for harm, because you stopped needing their approval, you stopped playing small, you stopped dancing for crumbs. You became whole, and that is something a narcissist cannot understand, because their world revolves around control, illusion, and praise. But your new world, it revolves around truth, peace, and purpose. It's a frequency they cannot access, a realm they no longer have a key to. And now they are spectators, observers, outsiders to the very light they tried to extinguish. They scroll past your joy. They hear about your breakthroughs. They see your name spoken with honor. And they are forced to wrestle, not just with who you are now, but with who they refused to honor when it mattered most. Because what they once called too emotional, the world now calls deep. What they once called too sensitive, the world now calls wise. What they once called not enough, God has declared more than worthy. And so they must sit in the ashes of their ego, watching you dance in the garden they never believed would grow. That is the consequence they didn't plan for. That is the pain no manipulation can numb. That is the moment when God whispers, "This is why I told them not to hurt you." And they remember the moments they laughed at your prayers. They remember the nights they ignored your tears. They remember how easily they turned their back. And now all they can do is watch. Watch you walk forward in a grace they'll never taste. Watch you become a testament to everything they pretended to be. Watch you rise, not as revenge, but as revelation. You are the proof that God redeems, that healing is holy, that survival is sacred. And the narcissist? They are the echo of a warning. What happens when you mishandle what was sent to love you?